Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Files pod. It's your co-hosts Brandon Deutsch and Grant Mona here to provide you great analysis, draft advice, and when we get to the season, the winners and losers of the week. We haven't been doing that because it's preseason right now, so we're going to give you analysis, all the stats, all that stuff. There's one guy that's been on my mind though. I've been adamant about talking about this guy. He's getting disrespected. His ADP is around 67. And usually we'd go with the big names like a Justin Jefferson. But everyone knows Justin Jefferson's good. Everybody knows Christian McCaffrey's going to ball out if he's healthy, right?
Yep.
I want to talk about James Conner. And this is a weird team.
Why do you want to talk about James Conner?
This is why. This is a weird team. This team is going to suck. They made the trade, traded Isaiah Simmons, who they took over CeeDee Lamb, by the way. I remember that draft because the Niners took Javon Kinlaw, and I'm a Niners fan, and that was obviously not the brightest moment. The next year wasn't the next year Trey Lance? Was that 2 years later?
I think it was 2. Yeah,
Either way, they took Ayuk in that draft too, so it's not. I mean, Ayuk's a stud, and we always talk about Ayuk though. But James Conner, going back to the Cardinals, I love Michael Wilson, the rookie receiver from Stanford. I do like Rondale Moore a little bit, and of course, I like Marquise Brown. Colt McCoy is 36. Kyler Murray is not going to play this year. I think that trade indicated it, or at least he won't play to the end of the year. They're tanking, whether it's for Harrison, the receiver from Ohio State, or whether it's for Kyler Murray. I mean, not Kyler, but for Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray out of there, even though they gave him that contract.
Really, you think they'll get rid of?
No, they probably just are going to take Harrison. I think now that's something we can talk about from the football side of things.
Yeah.
But
in terms of fantasy,
in fantasy, it's just like for me when Kyler Murray. Look at these stats for James Conner.
Ooh.
And he was picked in the 5th round in your sleeper mock draft. He usually goes in round 6, but I think people are starting to wake up. If you look at his 2022 stats without Kyler Murray, and I made a TikTok about this a few days back. Look at his snap share. Okay, the second half of the season. Goes up to 96%, 97%, 95%, 91%, 97% of snaps. Few games he used 50, and I think that's because they were wipeouts. But look at the fantasy points in PPR in the games that Kyler Murray was out. 23.6, 13.4, that was his down week. 21, 23.4, 18.1, 25. 14 the last week. Not a great, he's touchdown reliant. But that's a guy who's a workhorse back you can get in round 5 or 6.
Well, let me say this really quick. In 2022, he finished with 8 consecutive top 20 fantasy weeks. Like, that's pretty impressive, right? That's pretty good. I mean, for me, though, he misses some games, too, James Conner. He's missed 2 games in each of the last 2 seasons, so It remains to be seen if he's going to be healthy. He's going to be the number 1 back, right? He's going to be the number 1 back. So he played in 85% of the snaps down the stretch, though, last season. So, I mean, there is optimism for that. But like you said, when he's on, I mean, he's really good.
And I think
you said, 5th or 6th round, I mean, it's kind of
and
a gimme,
for fantasy
right?
purposes, there's a lot of guys in committees going before him. Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson, guys of that stature. Now, obviously, Mattinson's a different story. Mattinson is also a guy that should have a heavy workload. But you could make the argument James Conner could have a better year than Mattinson. As much as Dalvin Cook thrived in Minnesota's offense, and I really love Mattinson, but I think his ADP is kind of where it should be now. Like, he's going like 4th, 5th round, and I feel like that's accurate because that is a pass-heavy offense. And Dalvin Cook looked weak at times last year in that offense. He had a couple down weeks.
Madison outplayed him.
Madison did. And I do think Madison's going to be really good. I'm not saying
too.
that's a bad 4th or 5th round pick. It's just he was going round 6 or 7 earlier on, like a month ago, and people are drafting super early, and obviously we saw that with Jerry Jeudy, with your boy Lucas. And we'll get into Jerry Jeudy in a sec. But going back to Conner, the heavy workload backs like Conner and Rachaad White from Tampa, like I know Tucker has been starring in the preseason. I don't care about preseason. Rachaad White and James Conner are the lead backs. I mean, preseason opens eyes for the RB2. Like Devon Achane will start as the RB2 or 3 even if he's healthy, and then eventually midseason. And I'm not saying that can't happen.
Like Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, we will get into him too. That's the trade deadline for him Tuesday or whatever. But look, just going back to Conner, workload matters. Like, that's a safety net. Unless he gets hurt, and yes, there is you made a good point, Grant. There's a high chance he gets hurt because he's going to have a heavy workload.
Man.
But that's the same thing with, all...
You can say that about a lot of running backs.
Everybody in the NFL. It's football.
Yeah.
People get hurt. It's a dangerous sport. But I'm just saying I love James Conner in round 5, 6, 7. And I love Rachaad White in round 7, who's the guy I want to go into next. Now, he didn't have an excellent year last year. He was behind Leonard Fournette. which is part of the reason. But when he got a 91% snap share, he got 20 fantasy points. That was the 1 week he had above 90% snap share. And he's a workhorse back. And I know Tucker's performed really well. And people are asking me, what about Tucker? He's had a good preseason, whatnot. Baker Mayfield checks down more than any other quarterback in the NFL. He's number one. And he's the starting quarterback. Now, I don't even care if Tucker gets 20% of the touches even, which he won't. I mean, Rashad will get 80. He'll get an 80, 90% snap share the first couple weeks at least, the first half of the season. And he wasn't efficient, but he's another workhorse guy. They're going to have to get him the ball. Who do they have? They have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Can Baker even get the ball to them?
Chase Edmonds?
Not
Edmonds really.
Is
yeah,
washed.
that's what I'm saying.
Let's be real.
There's a reason why he's on the Buccaneers as the second guy behind
He wasn't even
Rashad
the RB4 on the Dolphins
right,
last year. I mean, I hate to say it. No offense to Chase Edmonds.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of touches. Like, Chase Edmonds may take away touches, which is why, I mean, obviously, we're not talking about Rashad White as this first through third round guy. We're talking about him as a back end, maybe RB2.
Round.
Right, exactly. But like James Conner, he's going to get a majority of the touches at the running back
position. And that matters. These teams are terrible, but it matters. It's like if you also look at, I don't want to throw the Rams under the bus because they could be good.
Please do. Look, I'm wearing the shirt, but I am a realist.
They could be good, but I think Akers is another good option too. I mean,
me too.
He's a serial fumbler, but the guy's a great pass catcher. And look,
love when you say that.
He needs to go. There needs to be some. He might get indicted for fumbling. I hate to say it. I mean, Cam Akers might get indicted for fumbling. I mean, there are crimes against humanity with the way that guy holds the football.
No,
he is Butterfingers.
I agree.
But he's really fast. He's really explosive. And he's a great runner.
Yeah.
Like, there's no denying that. And if you pull up his stats in the second half of the season, they were excellent when he came back. And last year it was, people really hated him because they drafted him in the third round. And it was like, well, he was supposed to be, Kyren Williams.
He's coming off of an Achilles
Henderson
injury.
was there. Yeah. But now there's really, who's the RB2?
Ronnie Rivers? Like, who's it? Kyren Williams?
Kyren Williams is fine, but like they're not as good as
Zach
Cam
Evans.
Akers.
Zach Evans
is pretty good.
He's good. But he's like Akers, but Akers is in his prime still. He's 24 years old.
Yep.
He was excellent down the stretch last year. They have a way better offensive line this year, the Rams do, so that's going to create a lot more open holes. The issue with him last year was that he wasn't finding the open holes in the first half of the season. In that second half of the season, when he was kind of the feature back, he was electric.
I watched one of those games like
Cam Akers against the Broncos on Christmas Day.
Oh my God! What do you have? 2 touchdowns and like multiple 20-yard reception, like 20-yard catch. I mean. And look, if you're playing PPR, his value only goes up because, the line, it did get better, but let's be real. It's still not the best line in the league, even though they finally prioritized that and that was important and they should be better offensively.
Yeah.
But Stafford's going to check down. If there's no Kupp or Higbee open or Nakua, I mean, he's going to go Pika Nakua, who I think is going to be the wide receiver too. I really like him and we'll get into him. I think he'll check down to Akers a lot. I really do. Akers burst, and as long as he...
They even use Akers sometimes as a slot receiver. I know they got Puka Nakua, and they have some guys that kind of fill that now, but last year and even the year before that, they kind of used Akers as another wide receiver, which is actually... They'll probably use him like that again. So I just want to mention one thing. I'm looking at ESPN because I know a lot of people use ESPN. He ranked 5th among running backs in fantasy points during that 6-week span that I was talking about at the end of the season. 5th amongst running backs. That's
Top
really
5.
good.
Top 5.
So,
and that's the argument I use for like when people are like Eckler over McCaffrey, and I'm like, you guys are crazy. If McCaffrey played the whole season in San Francisco, he would have been the RB1 by a mile.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't have been even close. And Eckler's second half was not great. Right. It was not great. Right. And his first 2 games were abysmal. Remember? People were like, wow. And then all of a sudden he had 4 touchdowns in week 3 or 3 touchdowns, and we were like, wow. But that's just beside the point. My point here is there's a lot of value, more than I initially thought, with running backs in the 6th, 7th round.
Yeah.
5th, 6th, 7th round, or even 4th, 5th with Mattinson. Now, I still love the wide receiver value in the mid-rounds more, which is why if you have, per se, the 8th or 9th overall pick and all the elite guys are off the board, like let's say the wide receivers are off the board, Kupp, Hill, Chase, Jefferson, they're all off the board. The next is Diggs. You're not gonna reach for Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round as much as I do think he'll end up being a first-round talent by the end of the season. With the amount of talent in the middle rounds, Christian Watson, Brandon Ayuk, guys we've talked about, Jerry Jeudy before the injury. Obviously, we have to stay updated with that. But even guys like Amari Cooper going in round 5. Like, for me, getting a running back at that 8-9, like Saquon, or even, I prefer Saquon over Bijan Robinson just because I've seen it. Last year I saw it.
Right.
And there's nobody else on the offense. Unless he gets hurt, he's going to finish as a top 6 or 7 running back. I mean, he signed the deal, whatever. But I'm getting a running back at 8-9.
Okay.
I don't even care if you reach for Chubb. I would prefer Bijan or Saquon because I think Bijan's really talented. And
But we haven't seen it.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
and
worried
that's
about.
why I
Like,
prefer Saquon.
right.
over him,
That's why
slightly.
I'm worried about Bijan Robinson. A lot of people, like we had people in Brandon's live TikTok live, which you guys should probably check out, by the way. And people were saying, should I draft Bijan third overall, not third round, not and third overall? And we were saying, like, oh, come on, he's good, but we haven't seen it yet. We've seen a lot of running backs come out of college and just not be as good as what we thought, or guys that weren't good in college come out and be really good. So you can base it off of the
You
talent,
want to hear a hot take?
but I just don't know yet.
I think out of the rookie running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs may finish
Maybe
higher
better.
than Bijan Robinson.
I love Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs is the steal of all steals
I
in
love
round 3.
Jahmyr Gibbs,
Now,
yeah.
there's certain drafts where I go Amon-Ra in the second round, and I'll be like, I'm fine having 2 Lions players. Give me Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Those
Yeah.
are the 2 best players on the Lions offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a Ben Johnson ran offense. And people are like, Jahmyr Gibbs, they got David Montgomery. Like, is he going to get touchdowns? And it's like, dude, they're going to use him in slot. He's going to be used like Deebo Samuel, like prime Deebo Samuel, like a few years back,
Right.
like as a rookie. And he has fresh legs. A lot of people that goes unnoticed. Like fresh legs matter. A lot of rookies produce in fantasy. And for me, I would rather prefer Gibbs in round 3 as my RB1 than Bijan in round 1. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
but going back to the point, I don't care if I have Saquon in round 1 and Gibbs in round 3 and have 2 running backs in my first 2 because those are 2 elite guys. I just prefer Saquon over Bijan is my point. I'm not saying Bijan is a bad pick at 9, 10, 11 because I still think he's a good pick. But, I mean, I feel like Tyler Algier is too good for Bijan to be going top 8.
Yeah.
Like, people are talking top 8. Like, his ADP is fine, 9, 10, like, whatever. That makes sense. He could finish as a top 5 running back. But there's risk, of course. But what I'm saying is Tyler Algier is too good for him to be going above Saquon Barkley, to be going above Austin Eckler, to be going above Christian McCaffrey and all the wide receivers, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing with the Falcons, they're just like with Bijan, we don't know what we're gonna get. Like they could be kind of decent, or they could be just like they were last year and just underperforming. So, you made a good point about Tyler Algier. I mean, it seems like they found a gem with him, and they're gonna probably feature him a lot more than what we think. And it's kind of crazy that they have Bijan and Tyler Algier because that duo is kind of pretty. It's pretty good. But it's a run-heavy offense, anyways. So they're gonna use both of them a lot.
There's
like,
value
like
for
you
both.
said. There's value for both. So, do you take a late flyer on Algier? Like, where would you take Algier if you're thinking of like later rounds?
I mean, he goes in the handcuff area.
Because I think he's still going to get a decent workload,
I
even
think
with
he's-
Bijan coming in.
Yeah, a lot of people compare him in that same range as Elijah Mitchell, who should get touches with Christian McCaffrey. You know, Elijah Mitchell's
that's
really
true.
good.
That's a good comp. Yeah.
I think that's fair. I mean, I would take Algier and Elijah Mitchell over Tank Bigsby because I'm all in on
True.
ETN. Like, unless ETN hurts, like I
There's
have
a lot of good running back
I have
duos.
a hard time believing like Bigsby will get touches.
Yeah.
But Bigsby's not getting as many touches as Elijah Mitchell and,
No.
and Tyler Algier, in my opinion. ETN is too good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and Doug Peterson literally came out and said ETN's getting 1,600 to 1,700 yards rushing this
Because they're finally going to
season.
utilize him.
And everyone's like, oh, ETN's washed. Bigsby's going to start. Did you not
Washed
watch
after 1 year?
Did you not watch Clemson in college?
Yeah, what?
Who was Clemson's best player besides Trevor Lawrence? Travis Etienne.
Travis
Who has a
Etienne.
rapport with Trevor Lawrence? Travis Etienne. Who was the
They're on the
best,
same team
who was the
again.
best pass catcher in college? And they don't use him as a pass catcher yet, which is scary to see his ceiling. Travis Etienne. So, like, for me, like, when I see Tank Bigsby going above Elijah Mitchell and above Tyler Algier, what are you doing? Like, Bigsby, you have to draft if you draft Etienne because you need the handcuff just in case Etienne gets hurt. But Bigsby's not getting 30% of the touches. Like, there very well could be Algier starting the year with 30% touches, which is why, you know, and that's not saying Bijan can't average 17 fantasy points on 70% of the touches because he very well could. He's that talented.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, Bijan's a good pass catcher too. It goes unnoticed. A lot of people think he's just this explosive run
Okay, he's
up
kind of
the
like
middle.
ETN.
He is. I think Gibbs is more Gibbs and ETN.
Okay, yeah.
And
Gibbs is a
Gibbs is
great
like McCaffrey
pass
kind
catching
of.
back. Yeah.
Gibbs is more McCaffrey. You're right. I think Bijan is a good comp to ETN more because they know the way they'll be used
Right.
this season.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
Doug Peterson did not use ETN as a pass catcher. He's explosive, ran him up the middle.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know why James Robinson was starting.
I know.
Look at their
He's
record
out of the
when
league,
James
no?
Robinson.
He got
I
cut
think
by the
so.
Patriots. or something.
Look at the Jaguars' record last season when James Robinson was starting versus when ETN was starting. They started going on their run when ETN. It's not a coincidence that you get one of the best. By the way, only started for 9-10 weeks and had the fourth most 100 yards, tied for 100-yard rushing games in the NFL last season. Like, Etienne's a superstar. Another guy in round 3 that it's like, when I get to round 3 and I need a running back, it's Gibbs or Etienne. And if they're both, I don't know how they're falling to round 3.
That's a tough pick, though.
I don't know what to pick between the two. Like, for me, I like flip a coin.
Well, here's the thing. We were talking about it before with Bijan and guys like Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb. Like, you've seen Etienne. You've already seen what he can do. We haven't seen what Jahmyr Gibbs can do.
Even though we kind of know he's going to be good.
Yeah, but we know. It's just like Bijan, though. We kind of know, but we don't.
And
so,
again, we're not.
So do you want the safe pick or do you not want the safe
exactly.
pick? That's the thing.
But you got to take
it's
risks
up to you.
win
It's up to you
football.
when it comes to those
You have
guys.
to take risks. I mean, last year I took Etienne in round 3, and it didn't work out for the first 10 weeks, and then it became a steal, right? Like that. But we're not saying our point here isn't that Bijan Robinson isn't a top 12 pick, because he is.
Yeah.
It's just more that don't be surprised if Tyler Algier gets 35% of the snaps right away. He's talented. And do not take – everyone's taking Bijan Robinson over Saquon Barkley, which is ridiculous to me. I mean, do the Giants even have another running back on the roster?
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Neither do I. Which is not, which means that he's going to get the whole offense is Saquon Barkley.
Well, the whole offense is predicated on like RPOs and like a run-heavy offense because Daniel Jones is basically a tall running back that can throw a little bit.
And I like it. I like Dable. Dable's a good coach.
I like their
Dable's
team,
good,
but it caters to Barkley. Like,
Which
it caters to him.
For me, like, you have to consider Barkley at 5, at 6. Like, Barkley's good.
Barkley was really
Barkley
good
is
last year.
falling to
and
8,
you could
9.
say, like, there's a lot of injury concern, just like we were saying about some other guys, like James Conner. But, like, in fantasy football, you're going to have to take risks. You're just going to
It's the only way you win.
Yeah.
It's the only way you win. What, are you going to draft Mahomes, like, first round and then just be like,
if
Kelsey,
you take all safe picks in fantasy, you're
You'll
not going to
lose.
win a lot. You're just really not. You got to say, okay, well, this guy may have this upside. Take him. Take a guy like Bijan. Take a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs because these guys can be superstars immediately. Like, I think both of those guys, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan, can be that
That's
good
the best
immediately.
running back class that's entered the NFL like in a long, long time.
Even take Bigsby. Like, that guy's going to be good too. He's not going to be a superstar, but like he's going to be pretty good.
Bigsby will get like Bigsby. Not, I don't know about this year. Like maybe.
No, I'm
but,
not saying this year. But
eventually, like in Dynasty, like Bigsby's going to be good. But A-Chain's another guy. We'll get into the injuries now. Judy obviously got hurt at practice. Huge blow for people that already drafted him. I was high on Jerry Judy.
I
know. I was like, but
he talked me out of it too.
I was thinking Judy. I remember I said Judy
I was literally
the
ready
pick.
to hit draft.
I was like, Judy was the pick, and then I was like, wait, Amari Cooper's still available in round 5, and I was like,
kind of a sleeper, Amari Cooper, no?
Yeah, I mean, pull up Amari Cooper's production with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. I mean, I think he was like a top 15 wide receiver with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback.
I mean, look at his stats last year: 1,100 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, an average of 14.9 yards per catch.
And Watson's going to be better.
78 receptions.
So, like, I'm not on the hype train of Watson becoming that elite top 5 quarterback again, but I do think he'll be better. I think it would take an absolute moron to think he's not going to be better.
Yeah.
So I think that as a result, Cooper falling to the end of round 4, early round 5 is crazy to me. Like, you're going to take, no offense to Deebo Samuel, who we'll get into, but you're going to take Deebo Samuel over Amari Cooper? I'm a Niners fan. No way I would do that because Ayuk is on his team, McCaffrey's on his team, Kittle's on his team.
Mitchell.
Who's on Cooper's team? Elijah Moore? Like, Njoku, who's
Chubb,
never,
I guess.
yeah, but
Chubb,
Njoku's never finished as a top 8 tight end.
Yeah,
top
Njoku had a good
tight end.
end of the year, but he's never lived up to that guy that we thought he could be.
And he's solid.
either.
But what I'm saying, the fantasy points are going to be going to Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb.
He's the number 1 option besides Nick Chubb.
And they're going to be a much better offense this year.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I don't think Stefanski could. I mean, I think a raccoon could coach that offense better at sometimes. I watch him. I can't believe that guy won Coach of the Year a few years ago.
Oh, I know.
That was ridiculous. Their offense
Well, that was
is Stone Age. It's Nick Chubb run up the middle, Amari Cooper go run a vertical, go run a either a post or use your footwork or a streak. And use your footwork if you want to do anything else because he does have some of the best footwork in the league, Amari Cooper. But I'm just saying like that, it doesn't matter. Like they're going to be better because they have talent. Like let's just be real, and they have an offensive line, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're going to be way better this year. People
line.
are kind of sleeping on the Browns because of the whole Deshaun Watson situation, but they're going to be better, man.
I think that's a division that's similar, and that's just off topic here, but that's a division similar to the AFC East, where there's so many good teams. The Browns may get screwed because the Steelers are bound to win 9 games. Like, let's be real. The Ravens are going to win 10 games if Lamar stays healthy. And, of course, Cincinnati's going to win 12 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That's a good
then you're
division.
like, the Browns are going to win 7 and be the best 7-win team of all time, basically.
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing
They'll
about
probably be in last.
well, you can say the same thing about the AFC East. Like, I think Miami has a really good shot to win the
And the
division.
Patriots have an excellent defense too.
Yeah, and the Patriots will be by far the worst team
Yeah,
in the
but they
division.
still have a damn good defense.
And Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah,
Now let's talk about that.
and Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, wait, I wanted to go back to Judy really quick because right now, I mean, there's really not much to say about Judy until we know more of the severity of the injury.
Well, let me just tell you what it is. It's a hamstring injury. It doesn't look like it's going to be a minor hamstring injury. It looks like kind of a moderate to mild hamstring injury, which is going to keep him out multiple weeks, not just one,
Yeah.
not just it's going to keep him out probably maybe
so
until
where would
week
you
5.
draft him now?
Shoot, that's
moving
tough.
forward?
I mean, but look, when Judy is back and healthy, which I hope that he gets back and healthy as soon as possible, he is still that number 1 option on that team. Say what you want, he's still going to have a great year. It's just a little bit of a setback. Do you want to take that risk to where you miss 4 or 5 weeks at the beginning of the year and kind of keep him stash him at the back of your bench? Do you want to do that? I don't know. I still think Judy has a lot of value because the weeks that matter the most is probably the second half of your fantasy
course.
season too. I mean, you could
course.
get in a hole and win 6 in a row and still be in the
course.
hunt. So
Yeah.
for me, it's still good value. Obviously not 4th round value like we saw him at. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think round?
I think he falls to 7,
6.
8 now. I mean,
That's
it's
tough,
like,
man.
and it's the same thing with like Stevenson when Zeke came in. I'm not saying Zeke is a world beater. I mean, we saw him get pancaked on the last play of the season, and he's possibly one of the more inefficient backs over the past couple of years. But something he is excellent at is the goal line.
Yeah,
He's
and
a
that's
big body, and they just put him up there, and he just bruises through to get touchdowns.
Bill Belichick
And-
already said that he's going to get probably almost all of the goal line touches.
Which
anyway,
for
so-
Ramondre Stevenson, people that are like people are still drafting Ramondre in the 2nd round. Like, what are you doing, Ramondre? And believe it or not, one of the more talented guys in the league. RB7 with virtually no goal line touches last year. He had bad touchdown luck, was RB7 because he's an excellent pass catcher and he's an explosive back that'll get touchdowns from his 40, 50 plus yard runs. I think that end of round 3 is where I would draft Ramondre Stevenson now. Like, people love Ramondre Stevenson, and I do too. And I think he could have been a superstar if there was no Zeke signing, because then he would get the goal line touches, and
Yeah.
it'd be like, he's an obvious
Well,
second
they
round
needed
pick.
someone to supplement him, though. So
I
I
know.
understand.
And
the
I'm not
move,
saying
but
his value is completely gone, because
No.
I still think he finishes as a top 10 to 15 back
And-
without him.
a new play caller in Bill O'Brien, I think it's going to pay dividends for Ramondre. That's just me.
Yeah. No, but so where would you? I think middle to end
yeah,
of round 3.
I think so too. I mean, now that they have Zeke and it's been outspoken that Zeke's going to get a lot of the goal line touches, it takes away a lot of the fantasy value. It really does.
Takes
because
away the touchdowns.
he had 8 expected touchdowns and he got 6, in the TD department. So it's now, I just don't see him getting as many of the touches around the end zone as we think. I mean, Zeke, say what you want about how bad he is and how much he's regressed, but if you put him down in the goal line, he's still a pretty formidable
he's great
back.
there.
He's
I mean,
still
he was,
really
he
good.
was great in fantasy last year.
It's just that people have this perception of Zeke to where it's like, oh, he's still that guy. He's still the guy that we saw in his rookie year, second year. That's not what he is anymore. And for Ramondre, I think that I don't know. I don't know why they did it. Honestly, I don't really see the move. I mean, did you really need another guy? I mean, they had Damian Harris last year, who was he
didn't
really
do anything.
He didn't really do much of anything at
That's
all.
why I like James.
So
Cook.
Ramondre is kind of like that all-in-one guy because he's big enough to where you can use him in goal line situations. But now they have Zeke.
And that's a good transition. Where would you draft James Cook? And Damian Harris is the RB2.
yeah.
We knew James Cook was talented. I was talking to that Bills fan about it at the game, the first game of last year,
Yeah.
the Rams game. And he didn't do great last year because he was behind Singletary.
You were really high on him.
Yeah, I was.
For good reason.
I was. And I think now it's the year. You can get him in round 7, round 8 latest. And I think he could be a top 15 running back. I really do. I mean, his pass
Wow.
catching is elite. He apparently one of the more top 10 efficient backs per route, rush.
Yeah, so he
You
was
know?
he averaged 5.7 yards per carry, which was third amongst
Third.
running backs.
I knew it was top 10. Okay, so
Third,
you're
man.
right. 10. I had 3.
Yeah.
So for me, and he's an excellent pass catcher. Now, I'm not saying the Bills are obviously going to target Stephon and Gabe more, and all their receivers, of course, Allen RPOs, all that stuff. But I'm just saying there's going to be a ton of value now with I know they got Harris, But Damian Harris is washed, man. Let's be
Yeah.
real. It's James Cook. It's the James Cook show. If he doesn't get 70% of the touches, I'm surprised.
It's actually pretty good. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be as high as what you said, but his ceiling is pretty high, right? He's going to get a lot of the
It's a
touches this
risky
year.
pick,
And
but
Damian
yeah.
Harris, like you said, I don't think Damian Harris is going to take away a lot from him either, because James Cook is like you said last year. I mean, Brandon was very adamant about him last year. He was a second-round pick last year, pretty high, and from what we saw from that first game, I actually really liked the way he
Until
carried
he
the ball.
fumbled. Until he
Right, until he fumbled. But
Yeah.
but I like what he does in terms of that offense. The sample was small. He only got 110 touches last year. It's kind of like what we're saying about Trey Lance. Give this guy a shot, which James Cook is going to get this year. He's going to get that RB1 touch. I think he can be pretty good. And the Bills' offense is elite. We forget about that.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be in an elite
And
offense
that's why-
as the number one RB option. Like,
That's why Mixon gets fantasy points every year. Now Mixon's fallen to the 4th round. That's good value.
I want to hear your thoughts on Mixon because
I used to hate him. He was a first-round pick last year
Yeah,
by
a lot of people share
people.
that sentiment.
And
I don't know if I'm
I
still
used
high
to
on
dislike
him.
him. I used to dislike him. I didn't see anything special. But now that he's
do
going in
this.
the 4th round, I love Joe Mixon. I love Joe Mixon and
Really?
Aaron Jones in the 4th round now because it's like end of 3rd, early 4th round. It's like, dude, they're Joe Mixon specifically in an elite offense. He's going to
Like I said,
benefit from
yeah.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow being there. And he has a good offensive line. It improved. They've been improving the offensive line every year. He had a terrible offensive line the past 3 years and still was a top 15 running back. So you're telling me he's 28. Obviously, the legal issues on the side got fixed pretty much.
Yeah.
All the misdemeanor. I forgot exactly what it was.
I think
but
he's good.
but he's good there. Why won't he finish as a top 10 to 15 running back?
He finished top 10 in fantasy points per game for the 3rd consecutive season last year.
and his line got better this year.
Right. So what? Like, I don't see why. I mean, maybe because he's 27. Even
And you can get him as your
like-
RB2. As your RB2.
well, I think it's just because the volume decreased last year. Like, the amount of touches he got was not the same.
See, but
as it
I
was
have the
before.
same argument. I say, what do I say about Christian McCaffrey? Everyone's like, why
Oh,
would you
yeah.
draft Christian McCaffrey first? Elijah Mitchell's there. I don't care if McCaffrey gets 65% of the touches only. Because I know that in those touches, he's the most explosive and best pass catcher in the league, and he's going to get all of the red zone touches. Same thing with Joe Mixon. Perine left. Like, Perine's gone, and Perine was the least efficient back in the league. And we'll get into Javonte Williams next, who I really
Yeah,
like.
you like Javonte.
Javonte looked like
I did
he was
the year before, but not last year.
Javonte was kind of looked like he was back in that preseason
I
game
hope
on
so.
that
I
one
liked
snap.
him
I mean,
before.
he was explosive, and he's an excellent pass catcher. We'll get into him next. But like,
Mixon.
dude, Mixon's good, and Aaron Jones, another guy. How has he fall into 3rd and 4th rounds?
Aaron Jones was so good last year. Even if the Packers weren't that great, Aaron Jones was excellent.
Well, think about it.
Because he was basically like their wide receiver one.
How many
besides
how
Watson.
many checkdowns does Jordan Love gonna have?
Right.
Are you kidding
Even
me?
last year,
Are you
Aaron
kidding
Rodgers
me?
had a lot of
Are you
checkdowns,
kidding
which
me?
resulted in some big yardage plays for Aaron
Yeah, but
Jones.
how much now? Everyone talks, oh, A.J. Dillon's on his team. I mean, it's like, has
Hey,
that
hey,
ever stopped
I mean,
him? Has that ever
No,
stopped
that's what I
Aaron
thought.
Jones?
That is what I thought. That's why I was like, oh, should I take Aaron Jones? And people were like, no, don't do that. And I was gonna trade Aaron Jones, and somebody talked me out of it, and it was the best decision I made because he was
Yeah.
excellent down the stretch.
Yeah.
They used him as basically like a wide receiver, and they also used him as like probably the feature
This
back.
is what I don't get. How last
This is a
year
feature
these
back.
guys can be Mixon and Jones are like clear second rounders, right? They're picked in the second round, and now they're end of 3rd, early 4th rounders. I would much rather have.
I mean, if you look at it, it's even more of a reason to pick him this year because you have Jordan Love and you have this kind
Check
of new
downs.
right. A
Check
lot of
downs.
he's definitely going to be the
Check
feature
downs.
guy now. I mean,
Him and
obviously
the
Watson.
whole offense is Christian Watson.
Yeah,
and him.
Christian
Like
Watson's
it's just
good,
going to be
but-
Jones and Christian Watson. Christian Watson's kind of like the one of the most. Him and Ayuk are like the two most underrated receivers.
I don't think
in
people
football.
understand what Christian Watson did last year.
He
at
was
the end of the
first
year
in fantasy
to get them
points
to that
per
point
touch.
in week 17.
First in fantasy points per route run last season.
18.
Per route run. They didn't even target him that much.
Yeah.
He had a stretch where he had 8 touchdowns in 4 weeks.
That's what I'm saying. That's
the
exactly
best,
that's the stretch I was talking
4-week
about.
stretch touchdown wise of any rookie and wide receiver in the history of the sport. You got to remember, Christian Watson still finished as a top 25 wide receiver, not even getting 5 fantasy points the first 8 weeks of the season. Pretty much, it was Dobbs. It wasn't like Watson was like, oh, Watson sucks. Like we're not going to use him. And all of a sudden, they started using him on jet sweeps. Started using him in all.
Hey,
of a sudden,
read the stats. This is
read
crazy.
the stats on him.
From week 10 on, he had 584 yards and 8 touchdowns on 35 touches.
35 touches.
Do you know how insane that is?
That's the
And
most.
that just shows you how intriguing he can be as a breakout guy.
You know what? You know what that reminds me of? You know who he reminds me of a lot?
Who's that?
I know he's much taller than him, but he reminds me efficiency-wise of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Ooh, okay.
Like when he gets those targets, he makes something of them.
Yeah.
And you know my thoughts on St. Brown. I think St. Brown is the guy I want in every single draft.
Yeah.
I think he's going to finish as a top 5 wide receiver. And I think he has a chance to finish as the number 1 wide receiver in the sport this year. Like there's a chance. And he's only like 5'8", 5'9", and Watson's 6'4", so obviously different body types. But what I mean by this is when they get those receptions, they like do stuff with
Yeah,
it. Like
exactly.
they make things happen. And when I look at guys like, yes, Rodgers to Love is a downgrade. We all get that. But like the talent is there, and you can get him in round 5 or 6. He went in 6'8" to you, to one of your like league mates in this 12-man league right here. Now usually he's in round 5. There's risk because Jordan Love is the quarterback, but you're telling me he can't at least produce a little better than he did last year? And last year was pretty dang good.
Like if he has the kind of stretch that he had from last year over a course of a full season, we could be talking about this guy as a top 5 receiver in the league.
He might
I'm
have
serious.
He might have. You know how I said Jalen Waddle's
No, that's a big if, but
What was my big thing last year? I said Jalen Waddle's going to have that Justin Jefferson type ascension.
no, you said that you could
2.
get Jalen Waddle, who's a first round type of guy, in like the
round 3.
3rd or 4th round.
And what happened?
Do you
what
see,
happened?
So you see, so you're
That's what I see with Watson.
with
this
Watson.
year.
That Watson's your guy. It's the
Watson.
W's, I guess. The Waddle and Watson.
At Watson. I mean, Waddle has a better quarterback.
Yeah.
And Waddle is definitely relying on Tua because Waddle was.
Yes.
They both were.
Yes.
Tyreek and Waddle were both. Think about how crazy this is. Both were top 5 fantasy wide receivers when Tua was healthy, and then when Tua wasn't
They were
healthy,
excellent,
Tyreek
yeah.
continued his target. Skylar Thompson loved to target
Waddle took a deep
Tyreek.
dive.
Waddle. You know, he'd still finish the wide receiver 8, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
or wide receiver 7. But I think Watson's that guy who might have a,
Yeah, I got you.
he might take it to another level.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a guy.
Oh, before that, Javonte Williams.
That's
do you
what I
wanna-
wanted to
yeah,
get
you
into.
want to add?
Javonte Williams. In that preseason drive that he had with Wilson and Judy against the Niners, he was catching passes. He was explosive. He looked really good
Mm-hmm.
against. I mean, the Niners. They had everybody out there except Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
And he looked good. And he's coming off of an
Wait, so they played the
ACL tear.
starters?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
That first drive. Hargrave was out
did not know
there.
that.
Armstead was out there. Fred Warner was out there.
Damn.
And Javonte Williams and Russell Wilson looked good. Now Russell Wilson we know is going to have a comeback year. Sean Payton's like a quarterback whisperer. We kind of know like
He's gonna be better.
he's going to be
I'm not
better.
gonna say
He's going to be better.
comeback
And it's
year,
all
but-
relying on his running, by the
Yes,
way.
Yes.
And he showed that off. But Javonte Williams you can get in round 7. Perine's the
And-
least efficient back in the league.
And look, he was sharing before he got hurt because he had a torn ACL in week 4. He was sharing with Melvin Gordon. Like Melvin Gordon took away a lot of the touches from Javonte Williams. And I mean, say what you want, but this guy, like, let me read off some stats. Like, he had 60-plus scrimmage yards in 3 consecutive games to open the season. Like, I know he got hurt in week 4, but that's pretty insane
And
for the
he's
first 3
really
weeks.
his yards and
Third among running backs and targets.
in
during that
his
time.
rookie
Like,
year, he was the most efficient back in the league.
Right.
He was number 1
He was
in
so good his
efficiency.
rookie
He was
year.
so good. And I was splitting time with another running back.
Yeah.
Right? With Gordon.
Mhm.
So like I just think about like I know you got to take risks to win. That's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah,
Javonte at
that's
the end of
fair.
round 7, are you kidding me? Like the guy could become a top 10 running back. Now it's unlikely because he's coming off of an ACL tear.
Yeah, it takes
and
guys a while.
he'll split with Perine.
Except for Adrian Peterson. He came back quick.
But Perine and Williams is young. That's another thing. You tear your
Yes.
ACL at 28.
drafted
like,
2
like,
years ago.
like once Gurley got hurt after the first
Ooh,
3
yeah.
years, it was over. And he was so dominant before. It sucks. That just shows you Gurley's like the epitome of running backs. You know, like how dominant a guy can be, and then once they get hurt at 27, 28,
Sucks to
29, he was
see.
done. He's retired by age 30.
Yeah.
Like Javonte is still 24. You know, so he can still do it. Last thing I wanted to get into, because I know that you love to draft Herbert. We all do, and we know our thoughts on Herbert. I wanted to ask about the receivers. We know Allen is going to be consistent if he stays healthy. Now it's interesting. They should have drafted Jordan Addison. I think we're all in agreement there. They drafted Quentin Johnston, who's a Mike Williams clone. Discount Mike Williams, basically. Who do you value more at their average draft position? Mike Williams at 72, who, by the way, can never stay healthy, but if he does, will obviously finish as a top 20 wide receiver,
Yeah.
most likely. Or Quentin Johnson at 93, who didn't have a good preseason, but Justin Herbert reportedly likes him. They have a good rapport.
I don't know. I never understood the pick. Like you said, Jordan Addison was right there for the taking. They needed a slot guy, and they went after Quentin Johnson. So I'm still going to go with Mike Williams just because, I mean, look at in we're going to say full games because Mike Williams was hurt. That's another issue. His durability is an issue. Mike Williams got hurt last year in 11 games. He had he had a great target share. He was 13th among wide receivers in fantasy points per game, which is still pretty good. And then in 2021, I mean, this guy was unbelievable. I mean, he had, I think, 1,000-yard year. Herbert really loved him that year. When he's healthy, he's still one of the top receivers in the league, in my opinion.
That's why I got paid. He's
still one of the top receivers in the league.
He's arguably, now with Evans' decline, the best vertical threat in the league.
I don't know. Yes, exactly.
Like for big bodies.
I think, and I said this in the pod last time, without Joe Lombardi and with Kellen Moore in there, I feel like they're just going to launch the ball.
Well, Keenan Allen's going to turn into CeeDee Lamb.
Keenan Allen's going to be, exactly. Keenan Allen's going to be great. Look, and we're going to say this, if healthy, because obviously there's issues, and that's why Mike Williams is probably going to project to be a little bit farther down the line, maybe a wide receiver 3, but even so, even at a wide receiver 3 value, like, are you kidding me?
I think he's a great pick at 72. That's his ADP. That's what I'm telling you to pick next. Ayuk's off the board. You have Herbert as your quarterback. That's who you should pick next. I mean, you're not up yet, but I'm just saying.
I hope nobody takes him.
Yeah, why is with your sleeper draft? These guys take like days. This guy's been on the clock for hours. Who is this guy? Who is this clown? Good. I'm not going to read that name. But you know what I'm talking about.
Never read the fantasy names live on camera.
Yeah. They're always something bad. But let's just say this guy's having a good time out there. I mean, this guy's team's wild, by the way. Somehow he got.
Well, what's his team? Maybe we can.
Somehow he got.
I'll shout him out.
Somehow he got Ridley in round 4, which is a great pick.
Oh, shoot,
but he took Jacobs in round 2, which I hate because Jacobs had 300 plus carries last year, and most running backs, not every, the following year after 300 carries, not touches, get hurt, and he has not shown up to camp, and could be a contract dispute. Travis Kelce in round 1 was a great pick by him. Lamar Jackson in round 3 I like. There's upside there. He could finish as a QB1. Ridley. What was this pick? Kamara in round 5?
Let me see the name.
I kind of like it, but Kamara. Hey, by the way, Kamara was really bad last year when he was healthy.
I don't even know who that is.
Am I wrong? Name. Kamara kind of concerns me. Like he's coming back in week. Somehow he only got suspended 3 games, which was like I thought he was going to get suspended 6. And I loved Kendre Miller, and now Kendre Miller's value goes down. Obviously, They got Williams, who was a touchdown machine. Kamara, when he comes back, like last year when he was the lead guy, no competition for touches really. He was kind of abysmal besides a few weeks. Like even his pass catching, he wasn't efficient. He had a bad year. He's starting to decline. I think we've seen that. I don't love Kamara there, but I'm just gonna say this guy took Christian Watson. This guy's on the clock. The guy before took Christian Watson. The guy before is a good team.
Who's this?
James Conner, Christian Watson. No, the other guy. This is Lucas's brother.
Oh, Quinlan. Shout out Quinlan's such a smart kid.
Anyways, we'll leave it there. We're going to need to record 10 minutes of the Baller Sports Dialogue podcast.
We got to get all the content out as possible.
We'll leave it there. We'll be back soon. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Fantasy Files pod. We're here to help you in your leagues. Follow me, Brandon S. Deutsch, on TikTok for daily advice. And, of course, Grant Mona. What's your handle on TikTok?
Gmona48 everywhere.
That's what I thought. Gmona. Well, you should make it Money Mona.
Well, that's the name on Twitter.
Money Mona
X, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Money Mona 48. But yeah, Gmona48.
Yeah, follow us. Fantasy Files, BSD. We're on every platform.
All of it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate y'all.